If you thought Mark Wade's response to the Trump election results was big time baby stuff, you haven't seen anything yet. This will be the last time Aaron and I talk about the reactions to the election, but the Kelly Sue DeConnicks, the Mark Ruffalos, and the Rachel Leishmans of it all is so absolutely ridiculous that we did have to cover it here. And obviously, Aaron likes talking about all this stuff. It's part of the geeky goodness of pop culture.
I love it so much. I love talking about lunatics and their reactions to politics. My two favorite subjects.
Following the Trump victory, she posted on Blue Sky, she being Kelly Sue DeConnick, where she uses the Kelly Sue demonic handle. Our entire fucking job is to stay the fuck alive. Despair is an ally of fascism. Do not do their work for them. When people want you dead, every day you live is pissing in their coffee. Do it. Stay alive out of spite, if for no other reason. Our second job, take care of each other. That's each other here, our other friends and families and communities, and also random strangers. Our third job is to resist. This will take many forms. Please remember that any group needs tanks, DPS, healers, and support. Find the role that you can play and put your efforts where they are most suitable. Weird take.
I'm so tired of lunatics controlling the conversation. Like, this should be pointed at and laughed and then moved on from. Okay, first of all, I'm curious how many random strangers Kelly Sue's going to take care of. How many undocumented migrants is she taking into her home? I'm just curious. Because to me, all of this is performative. Every single one of these people, they come out, they say things, but then their actions don't actually match their words. The things that they actually put into practice in their own lives don't match up. You know, Mark Wade talks about goodness, and we know how he treats people. We know how he's treated business partners. We know how he's treated publishers that he's worked for. We know how he's talked to people. We know the horrible things that he's said to people after their wives have passed away and their businesses have failed. We know how he's treated women of color, you know, that he's a business partner with. You know, all those things are out there. Kelly Sue, how many homeless people is she taking in? How many violent drug zombies is she bringing into her home because she needs to take care of random strangers? What does that mean? What does that mean? And this whole thing about, like, we need to stay alive, we need to live out of spite. That just describes all of these people. That's all that they have is spite. Spite is a terrible reason to do anything. Also, nobody cares enough to get in your way. Nobody cares enough about you. You don't matter. You're not relevant. You know, it's like, you write comic books, you did a little bit of TV. Most people on the face of the earth don't know who you are, can't be bothered to care.
And to think that because of an election result, everybody that you know that has a belief that's similar to you is just going to be exterminated. Like, this isn't actual Nazi Germany here. If they put Kelly Sue DeConnick on the fucking fire line to take her out, guess who's going to be standing right there next to her and saying, not on my fucking watch. I will be there, because that is fucking psychotic.
Yeah. But this is these people, like, they live in this fantasy world where they want to be oppressed. They don't feel important unless they're part of, like, something. And this is very much the meme of weak men create hard times. These people crave oppression. Their demand for oppression far exceeds the actual supply.
It's an absolutely insane response to all this stuff, but we're seeing it kind of go around. And do you see the Tess Fowler? I love everything about you. Every piece of your boat and seeing you. I was like, what the fuck are you, like Hannibal Lecter? Are you going to eat people? Why are you talking about my tendons?
There's nobody who hates more than Tess Fowler. It's like these people, they say words, but then you see their deeds and you see the way that they, you know, when the truth actually comes out, when they let the mask slip, and they've all let the mask slip, and they are some of the most hateful and, you know, just petty and small people that you can imagine. But they like to think themselves as heroes. The truth is, people who have actual virtue don't feel the need to put it out there all the time. They just live their lives humbly. And none of these people are humble. All of these people have an incredible ego, and at the same time, a weird insecurity to have to continually get backpats from random people on the internet about how good they are. You know, it's like Elon Musk said, there's people who don't do good. They just have the interest. I know I'm butchering this, but, you know, they just have the interest in looking good, but not actually doing good. And that describes, like, to me, like, so many of the people in the comic book industry, you know, so many of these people that are in Whisper Network, so many of these people that, you know, they're so oppressed. And yet when they have power, they do nothing but blacklist and vilify. And, you know, it's just, I'm so tired of it. It's so exhausting. And this is part of the reason that I don't care about the mainstream industry. The mainstream industry is filled with lunatics. And I feel bad for all the shop owners that have to continue to try to sell product by these people who hate the very audience that the shop owners are trying to sell comics to.
The good thing that I've noticed is a lot of the crazies are actually leaving the regular social media and they're going over to their like Blue Sky or whatever. And I say, great.
Go get in your little echo chamber and you'll be even more surprised at the next election and more, more hysterical. Just get in there with all your people who think like you and, just go ahead and keep just eating the same slop and then be shocked when the majority of the country decides not to go the way that you want them to go. Keep calling people names. Keep vilifying, more than half the country now. Keep pushing people away. Keep marginalizing yourselves. And that's the thing. They want to be marginalized. So they go to Blue Sky. I posted earlier, Jack Donaghy from 30 Rock laughing, and I kind of paraphrased what he says about Banks being on LinkedIn, where it's like, he's on Blue Sky, Lemon. Blue Sky. He might as well be dead.
It's not only comic book pros that are freaking out. Mark Ruffalo spoke at the ACLU's SoCal's Bill of Rights Awards and took a notably somber tone as he approached the podium. We got our asses kicked, Ruffalo said, referencing Trump's victory from earlier in the week. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger, but sometimes you have to spend a little time in bed before it happens. The fact that we're here says a great deal about what we all care about in this life, the actor, who has played Hulk since 2012's The Avengers, said. I want to appreciate you all for your values and your grief and the fear that you most acutely may be feeling as well, because I know I am. We suffered a great loss. It's a loss that touches deeply on so much of what we've worked for and we've hoped for and dreamed for such a long time now. Ruffalo then asked everyone in the room to stand up, turn to the person next to them, give them a hug, and say, I love you.
Unless that person disagrees with Mark Ruffalo on one single thing, in which case he no longer loves them and they must be excommunicated. Why do we care what America's dumbest actor has to say? Like, why do we pay any attention to that absolute moron?
Always talking about the fear. I don't get it. Why is everyone so scared?
I don't know. I don't live my life.
Biden would be a train wreck. I didn't really talk about politics before that election. I knew that he would be a train wreck if elected. Mm-hmm. Did you hear me going out here like, I'm so scared? No, put your fucking head up and move forward. Yes, the president does matter and all that stuff, but when you get to the micro level in your personal life, what happens is up to you. If you choose to live in fear, you live in fear. If you choose to live in love, you live in love. If you choose to be happy, you'll be happy. If you want to be pissed, you'll be pissed. Stop blaming your fucking weird feelings on other people.
Yeah, stop making up scenarios in your own head and then feeling bad about them and being scared by them. Because all of these scenarios are in your head. This isn't somebody who we haven't seen in office before. We pretty much know what it's going to be. It's going to be fine. It's like Bill Burr says, like he said when Hillary when Hillary went down in flames, and he was on Conan O'Brien, and he said, at the end of the day, you liked Obama. He never put a sandwich on your table. You did that. You went to work. You earned your money, and you provided for your family. And that's going to be the same way that it goes under Trump. It'll be the same way that it went under Biden. Now, granted, that sandwich was a lot more expensive under Biden. But still, it was you going out to work. It was all of you in the audience working hard, doing what you need to do to get by. My hope for any presidency, I knew too that Biden was going to be a train wreck and that things were going to be really bad for, at least 4 years. And then I figured he'd probably die in office, and then we'd have that cackling idiot for a few years. But and I knew that things are going to be rough. And there may come a day when we're standing in bread lines because of the choices that Americans make, or because of the tomfoolery of the government. That may happen. But in the meantime, don't worry about it. Just make plans and move forward.
Yeah, you can't live your life in fear, especially when the person in charge. We've already seen what happened. He's not going to do anything to you.
Yeah.
He might do some stuff that you don't like. He might not legislate exactly like the way that you want to, but he's not going to go out there and have you rounded up for having opinions he doesn't like.
the way that they keep trying to push, you guys are all like everybody who's all of these comic pros, all of these stupid actors. And in Mark Ruffalo's case, I actually believe he's this dumb. There's a lot of actors that I think are just bought and paid for. Obviously we saw a lot of them get paid to come out and endorse Kamala during her campaign and make big paychecks. I don't know how you raise $1 billion in 3 months and then end up in debt afterwards. And, all the stuff that money was spent on, like, I guess they paid $100,000 to reconstruct the podcast set from that Who's Your Daddy podcast or whatever. Just wasteful spending. And this is the person that was going to fix the economy. No, you have to kind of look at these things. So a lot of these actors are paid off, and I think that a lot of the comic book pros have just bought into propaganda, and they'll buy further into it because they're going to go over their little echo chamber in Blue Sky where they all talk the same talking points to each other, and no logic will penetrate that sphere. No actual critical thinking will penetrate that sphere. I don't love the Republican Party at all. Actually, in a lot of ways, I despise them, maybe even more than Democrats. But the fact of the matter is that. It's like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? You're just going to be afraid all the time and you're going to just buy into lies all the time? Look at each party and judge them on a critical basis and hope for the best. I hope for the best when Biden went into office, even though I had a feeling this is going to be awful. And I hope for the best under a Trump administration. The
last voice of resistance that we're going to talk about, the Rachel Leishman stupid take of the week. Those who have spoken out against President Donald Trump are now living in fear. His MAGA supporters have been vocal about those who spoke about him, and now some fear for their lives and well-being for their families. Republicans in power who supported Trump used said power to try and launch attacks against President Biden and his family while in office. They attempted to impeach him because of the 2 impeachments that Donald Trump has on his record. The responses were targeted and felt like a ploy to just get back on behalf of Donald Trump. It is a terrifying time, and while we still have 2 months left of the Biden administration, the looming fear of the next Trump presidency is taking over. We don't know what he will decide to do until he is in office, but for now, we can take the testimonies of those who used to work for him and recognize how absolutely horrified the situation is. Talking about, I'm assuming, the Hunter Biden laptop story that we were told wasn't true for like a year and a half, and it turned out every single thing that was said about it was true.
It turns out that Biden, like a lot of politicians on both sides, is a career criminal. I'm sorry, but that's just the way it is. Never held a real job and enriched himself and his family using the office, did so illegally. But because our system of government is so corrupt and so many people are in on it, and the Department of Justice is so compromised, none of these people, right or left, ever see the consequences of their actions because they're a uniparty that's in it together. Carlin was saying this in the 80s, and this is, kind of like how I grew up being very suspicious of both parties, is that it's a big club and you ain't in it. We're not in the club. They know what works for them. There doesn't have to be a grand conspiracy where interests align. People understand what works for them, what works for all their little cronies that went to the same schools and the same country clubs and, are part of the same secret societies. They know what works for them. So, this idea that, Rachel Leishman is just, can I just address the fact that they keep trying to say that he's going to round up gay people and put them in camps and he's going to take all their rights away. And yet Trump is the first, if you just want to look at it from a logical perspective of, a historical perspective, he's the first president that went into office supporting gay marriage. Richard Grenell was promoted to the highest position a gay man has ever held in the United States government at the time, under Trump. There's all kinds of examples of how these things aren't true. Just like when they trot out the racism
presidency, it never happened.
Yes, and all of these charges of racism. But if you go back and you look at Trump's history, he has a history of embracing people of color and advancing them. The whole thing about demanding that they be allowed into country clubs that they weren't allowed into when he came into Florida and started joining these clubs. There's that evidence. There's pictures of him hanging out with Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton and all these people that vilify him now. He was their best friend. They loved him. You can go see all of those cackling hens on The View praising him before he decided to run for president. All of this is propaganda. All of this is hysteria. And I'm not saying that you have to like the guy. I don't think I've ever liked a president in my entire lifetime. Maybe Reagan, but I was a kid. Maybe Reagan. But, so I don't know. I don't, this idea that you have to like the president or like politicians or like almost deify them. Like the way that like some of these people like deify the politicians that are on their side is insane to me.
Also, I do think the curtain's been pulled back when it comes to like party politics. When, you know, George Bush was in office, he was vilified. He was called the devil, evil. Literally Hitler is what they used to call him. I wonder why that doesn't really resonate with people anymore. Who's he best friends with now? Who I always see him with? I don't ever see him with Donald Trump. I see him over there with Biden and fucking Obama. Because behind the scenes, these people are all working together anyway, strictly against the will of the people anyway, just to get their own shit through.
And there's all kinds of, and you know, it's like you guys, if you guys feel like we're excoriating the left a little too much, let's talk about some of the shitbags on the right. Let's talk about guys like Lindsey Graham. Let's talk about Thune, who just got made Senate Majority Leader, who is basically just Mitch McConnell 2.0. You know, let's talk about that. Let's talk about how all of these people are in lockstep with each other. You know, you can have Lindsey Graham on the floor talking real tough against Democrats, but then, you know, you watch C-SPAN and you get to see him like walk over and fist bump Kamala Harris. They're all in it together and they're all against you.
That's why they hate Trump, because he's not so much a political figure. He has a movement, but he doesn't have his place within the party politics in there. He doesn't have to go lockstep with them. They don't really have a lot of dirt on him, and they can't make him do what they want. That's why they hate him. He's unpredictable.
He's uncontrollable. They don't have him on a leash, and that's what scares them the most. And that's really what everybody should kind of be focused on, is the fact that the establishment on both sides hates this guy so much. Why do you think that is? I'm just saying, apply a little Occam's razor. What's the simplest explanation? That they don't have control over him. And that's what they want. They want control over him. They want control over you. They want control over every aspect of your life. They want to switch to a digital currency so that you cannot step out of line or they can shut you off from society. That's what they want.
I'm just waiting to get tagged, Aaron.
Revelations. You know, it's gonna. I mean, you know, when I was a kid, I would read that and I was like, "Well, this is fantastical." And now I look at it and I go, "Oh, yeah, I can see how all this could be implemented tomorrow." You know, what I really would like everybody to do is to go to Kickstarter and choose to kneel before Doomface.
Very interesting stuff going on in the world of politics, and certainly there's been an enormous backlash, almost completely negative, from pop culture. You know, whether it be comic books, whether it be movies, certainly the show media and all that stuff. I do want to say thank you very much to Aaron for talking about this. This is the last time we'll cover it here on the channel.
Thank God.
Like the rest of absolutely. If you would like the rest of the Geek Fix, you do need to go to Think Critical Patreon, because we got another 2 hours of geeky goodness minimum in us, and we're going to be talking all about Legion Con, which Aaron was at this weekend.